My name is Barbara Cole. I'm the Associate Vice President for Research Administration. Thank you for coming today. We have a jam-packed agenda, and we've got multiple speakers, so we're going to have them introduce each other as they come on and off the stage. I want to get started here, and I'm going to start with Edwin Bemmel. He's the Executive Director of Post Award, and Edwin's going to talk about award closeout, final expenditures. I will give you just one anecdotal piece of information. I was contacted last week by somebody at USC, and they were saying they were thinking about changing how soon you could get final expenditures in after the award was over. As you know, I think we have quite a lenient policy here, but you got to start getting them in on time, and that's what Edwin's going to talk about, not only for compliance reasons, but for the system reasons as well. So hold your breath at USC. You know how many days they have after the award? Any guesses? 15 days, that's it, or you don't get it. So we just want you to know other places are a lot more strict. Edwin, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So I'm Edwin Bemmel, and I'll be talking about starting off with two things. One is just in general the closeout. Here's the agenda, by the way. The first two things I'll be talking about is closeout and final expenditures. And then I'll be talking after that about the spend validations. I'm sorry for the typo. I caught it personally. It's my fault. I realized this morning that there was a typo in here. So this was not corrected, but it should be spend validations. Apologies for that. We'll, as Barbara already said, we'll go over the agenda, different speakers. So as they are being introduced, they'll be covering their section as well. So start out with the closeout and the final expenditures. So first start off with some good news in case you haven't noticed yet. As you may recall, we probably for about a year before going live with Workday, we started sending out automated notices 90, 60, 30 days before the award ended to notify the PI and administrative personnel that the award was coming to an end. With Workday, we initially lost the capability to do that, partially also just making sure that other priorities were being addressed. But we recently were able to get this enacted again. So if you haven't seen this yet, we are now through Workday sending notifications that are going out pretty much to the same people that used to get this before we went live with Workday. The email is pretty much the same. We tweaked a little bit, but the email is pretty much the same. That goes out first at 90, then 60, then 30 days prior to the award end. They are invoked every business day. So depending on when your award ends, if you happen to have two awards ending, one today and one on Wednesday, one 90 days from today and one 90 days from Wednesday, you'll get an email today for the one that's ending today, or 90 days from today, and another one on Wednesday. You'll get one that is ending 90 days from Wednesday. However, if you have multiple awards ending on 90 days, 60 days, 30 days, on the same day, you will be getting one consolidated email with all of them listed that are about to end. Okay. When you get the email notification, it's basically saying your award is going to end. If you need a no-cost extension, now is the time to start asking for a no-cost extension, or if not, start planning to close out the award. So at that time, the PI, of course, is going to have to make a decision or at least review where he or she is and see if a no-cost extension is needed. Okay, just as a reminder, a no-cost extension is only based on scientific reasons and not on financial purposes. Okay, so you ask a no-cost extension because for some reason you have not scientifically or programmatically finalize the project, or you don't intend to finalize it by the time it ends, and therefore you're going to ask a no-cost extension. Not because you have money left over. Now, having said that, of course, in order to carry out a no-cost extension, you will need to have funds to carry it out. Okay, but the driver is the scientific or the programmatic reason. Okay, so once you have decided that a no-cost extension is not needed, or once the PI has decided that, then this now would be the time to start the closeout process. Okay, it's never too early. As a matter of fact, it takes a long time to close out a project. So the sooner you can start, the better it is. Okay, so start the minute you get your first 90-day notification. At that time, that's a good time to start looking at everything. Start looking at making sure that all your reconciliations are current, making sure that all the expenditures that belong to the project are charged to the project, or if something is charged to the project that doesn't belong there, that it is moved off timely. Now, I want to explain this, and Barbara had a good intro to this, so thanks, Barbara. But people at quite often tend, or some people, I shouldn't generalize, but there are some people here at that confuse the sponsor given deadline with the ORA given deadline. And I've heard it so many times, either directly from people copied on emails, or people call me, or heard it from other people in the team, that we have a project that has ended and NIH is giving us till, I don't know, December 31st to close out the project and do a final expenditure report. Okay. You, of course, as a department, would have been given a much earlier date to get your closeout done. Sometimes December 25th, December 26th, December 31st, we get an email or a phone call saying, yeah, but the final report is not due until the 31st. Why can't I still put my expenditures through? It is important. I'm going to explain some of this in more detail in a minute, but it is important to understand the difference between the ORA provided deadline, which is a deadline given to the department as to when you need to make sure that all your expenditures are posted, or your reconciliation is done, invoices are paid to suppliers, and all of that is done so that we can immediately following that start our closeout process. Closeout process, once you're done, there is a lot more that we need to do on our end. And in order for us to make sure that things are done timely, that everything is reconciled on our end as well, all the drawdowns have been done and all of that, it is important to honor the deadline that we have given you. Okay, so one of the things that I want to point out is that when you are looking at the day that we're giving, so normally we give you for federal dates, for federal awards, we give you 60 days. Much more lenient than the 15 days that Barbara was just indicating. But we normally give you on federal awards 60 days. Now, this is direct federal fund. Okay, if it is a flow through, okay, it normally would be 30 days, and pretty much everything else, foundations and everything else, we normally have a 30-day closeout requirement to the departments. Okay, that is because once you're done, we need to then start closing out things on our end. Keep in mind, with federal flow-through funds, for example, your typical template, FDP template, requires 60 days for the final invoice to be submitted to the pass-through entity. So we don't have a whole lot of time to make sure that everything gets done and gets done timely. Okay. So one of the things that you have to understand also is that this includes getting supplier invoices, which also includes invoices paid to subrecipients, not only submitted to AP, but paid by AP. Okay, and there's a big difference between just getting it submitted to AP and ensuring that it actually gets paid. Okay, even after it gets paid, and I have some more information on that in a second, there is a process called settlement that I'll discuss in a second on that. But so just understand, please, that you submit the invoice to AP, to accounts payable, but follow up with them, please, and make sure that this gets paid timely. Of course, this also applies to cost transfers and PAAs. They will have to be submitted and approved before or by the deadline given by ORA on your closeout. Now, those dates coincide with the award line dates. So if you're familiar with how Workday works, just as a quick refresher, and Maria is going to show the new version in a few minutes, but keep in mind your award, your typical R01 or your typical award that you get from NIH is set up as an award, AWD XXX in Workday. The award has award lines, and the award lines have a grant or grants, right? The award line has award line dates, which is slightly different from your contract dates. Okay, your award line dates include your contract dates plus the closeout date. So the dates that we give you as a closeout should coincide with your award line dates. And this is also important because of spend validations that I'll be talking about in a minute as well. Okay, so once you have posted everything and you've ensured that everything has been posted, including supplier invoices, then shortly after that, we can start the closeout process. Okay, just please make sure that everything really truly is posted. Okay, now I want to talk about expenditures versus billable expenditures. And this is not only important because of UG requirement, the Uniform Guidance requirement that basically does not allow us to draw down funds from the government until the payments that we're making have actually, the check has actually been issued. So it's not just a matter of keying in the expense, but the check has to be issued as well. Okay, Workday makes that distinction as well. So when in Workday, when accounts payable pays an invoice, you're going to immediately see that expenditure for that payment of that invoice in the award transaction report, in the grant transaction report, whatever report you're pulling up from Workday that shows your expenditures will show that expense being incurred. But on our end, when we're now going to generate a bill, an invoice to the sponsor, that expense may not show yet as a billable expenditure. There's a distinction between those two. Now, the distinction is actually really driven by two things. One is, if you incur that expenditure outside of the award line dates that I was just explaining, right? Your award has award lines, your award lines have award line dates. Your award line dates are the contract date typically, plus the closeout period, maybe also plus pre-award cost, if applicable. Okay, so that is one of the factors that drives the an expenditure to be billable or not billable. The other thing is, and this is even more critical, this is basically the timing of when an expenditure, a payment that has been made, whether it's an expense report that is paid or a supplier invoice that is paid by accounts payable, it needs to be settled. Okay, and the process of settlement basically means that the check has now been issued. Keep in mind that AP is taking advantage of billing terms, which basically means that if they get an invoice today, and if the supplier allows for a 30-day window to get the invoice paid, there may be a discount in there as well that says if you pay in 10 days, you get a 2% discount, but if not paid in 30 days, or some may not offer you a supplier discount, and they just say just net of 30 days. Depending on the payment terms, the accounts payable is going to set up that particular supplier to either, if there are discounts, they're going to take advantage of the discounts, but if not, they may schedule that supplier for invoices normally to be paid or checks to be cut 30 days after the invoice date. Okay, and that is critical because it's a one-time setup for that particular supplier. If you're submitting an invoice today, thinking that by tomorrow it will be showing up on our end as a billable expense, that may not automatically happen. So that's why that's yet another reason why it is so important to not wait till the last minute to put expenditures through, to honor the dates that we're giving you, which will give you, I mean, the settlement date, best of my knowledge, is not going to exceed anything longer than 30 days. So if you honor the days that we've given you as the closeout days, you should normally be okay. But again, just follow up with AP also and make sure that the settlement has occurred. Okay, keep in mind, if an expense is not showing up as a billable expense, we will not be able to bill that to the sponsor. Kelly, go ahead. So that's a very good question. The question is there a report that is available to see what has been settled and what is billable? Actually, the Enhanced Journal Line report has a section that talks about settlement as well. So that is one way to look at it. We have been looking into making it more visible. Not quite there yet, but the Enhanced Journal report is definitely one that would show you that information. Okay, Barbara.
So with AP, right, let's say, okay, federal, we have 60 days. For foundations, we have 30 days.
Mhm.
So basically, if there is a supplier who has a net 30, just plain net 30,
Mhm.
AP is going to set that up. I really have to have it in by the end of the award.
So yeah, so what Barbara,
I just want to make that distinction because that's very, very important. And is there any place that AP has a list of their supplier terms?
And would you really want to repeat the
Yes.
question?
Yes, I was going to. Yes. So Barbara's first comment is the fact that you may have a settlement that is past the invoice date, right? Again, it may be as long as 30 days. Let's say you have the scenario she was giving is, let's say you have a non-federal award and we've given you 30 days to close. And let me take a perfect example. And this may not be applicable here, but this is one entity that I know has a fairly short window. Florida Department of Education. May not be applicable to maybe any of you here, but their typical reporting date, final reporting date is 45 days after the award end date. We're giving you 30 days. We have 15 days to close it out. So what Barbara is saying is, if you waited till day 30th and now you're going to pay an invoice, a supplier invoice, and let's say that particular supplier invoice has a 30-day payment term. Now we're going, by the time it gets settled, unless you intervene and you're talking with AP to get this settled much sooner, then we would have a problem in this case. You mentioned something else, I'm sorry. There was a second part to your, oh yeah. Basically, is there a listing of the payment terms? I will look into that. I'm not aware of it now. That's not the most ideal way, but I do know that when you go to the actual supplier in Workday, you would see how the supplier is set up. But I can check to see if there is a listing of payment terms by supplier. Yeah, I'll follow up on that. Mhm.
One other item, so people should look at their outstanding invoices and look at those supplier terms so they can gauge where they are and understanding how soon they have to get that expense in.
Yeah.
Not just only for us,
Mhm.
but for it to actually hit the award.
Yes, yes. So again, what Barbara is saying is just please monitor your expenditures, understand the payment terms, not only for yourself, but also for us, to make sure that you can get this paid on a timely basis before we do the final invoice or financial report. Okay, thank you. I already mentioned this, the delay between the payment made by accounts payable and when the settlement actually occurs may be as long as 30 days. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Okay, so waiting till the last minute could be dangerous. I know in the past, up to a couple of years ago, we were more lenient, not ideal, and it's not something we should be doing. But I know in the past we were making exceptions, saying, okay, we have to get a report out today, we have to get a final invoice today. You're saying you're going to pay a $3,000 invoice to a supplier, and we would include it in the invoice, we would include it in the financial report. We are no longer doing that. So just please understand that and be proactive on that. Somewhat related, Kelly.
Sorry.
Uh-huh.
One of the, not so much on expense, but on, like, let's say we get a check that needs to go back into a grant account to reimburse something that was paid out of it. Those checks, when they get sent to Office of Research in Atlanta, those are getting stuck, I think, still in the lockbox forever because of Workday trying to, clear out the account and get things settled. So we have a check that goes back 6 months that's sitting there, and we know about it, but we haven't been able to post it. So is that going to have the same issue?
1 second. So what Kelly is saying is she's seen a delay in sponsored invoices to be paid and actually applied to the award. Okay, so we get an invoice from a sponsor. We get a check from a sponsor based on an invoice that we've sent, and by the time the actual payment shows in the award, seems to be a delay of as long as 6 months.
Well, even if like somebody went on a trip, like a person went on a trip, got reimbursed the grant, and then afterwards the company says, we'll actually pay your airfare. So then a personal check gets written.
I gotcha.
Afterwards, goes back into the account.
So that includes what she's saying, reimbursements. So someone going on a trip, having some personal expense and reimbursing the awards for those expenditures. Now, they should be slightly different for 2 reasons. One is, admittedly so, we've been going through conversion with billing and payment applications. We've made a lot of good progress. We've actually completed the task of conversion of cash, but there is a lot of post-conversion cleanup that we're still working on. I've been talking with Maria Garcia mostly on that, and we're trying to get this wrapped up within the next month. And this is completely wrapped up because of all the other downstream impacts that this has. But however, having said that, it is up to today possible that a check received from a sponsor, we call it a sitting on account, meaning that we've already applied it to the sponsor, but we need to, because of some follow-up cleaning up that needs to be done, apply it to the actual award. So that definitely, yes, we're constantly working on, or continuing to work on that. Oops, sorry. And we're trying to get this wrapped up sooner rather than later. Now, having said that, the reason why I'm saying that there is a difference between the 2 scenarios that you've given, I don't think, and I don't have anyone from cash management here, but a reimbursement from an employee for an expense that maybe already was paid off the grant, or is somewhat split between the person paying part of the expense and which is more ideally to do it and just upfront split it up. That should not go to our lockbox, best of my knowledge. Only checks from sponsors go to the lockbox. Those should be sent to the cashier's office and applied directly. And I know I've seen, do you know for sure?
No, but I can follow up with you, Kelly, and let you know
Yeah.
the process.
I
I don't want to give wrong information, but I know years ago, when I was in the department, we used to send it, there was someone with a medical finance who used to stamp it. So I don't want to give you false information, I'll follow up with you.
So yeah, we'll double check that. I don't think that has changed. So those should be, best of my knowledge, applied much quicker. So we'll do the follow up and confirm that that's really the case. I saw another. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would like to also know that, because we have checks that were deposited October of last year that we're still waiting for them to be cleared. And I was told the same thing, that the local finance doesn't handle that, it has to go through you guys. And we've been following up on it.
You're talking also about reimbursement.
Reimbursements are refund checks that we received for our award. Like some client came that shouldn't have come and were charged us incorrectly, they were returned and we were issued several refund checks that went to medical finance, were sent, they sent to ORA. We followed up with you guys, they're in some account, but they've never made it to our account. And we just closed our award.
We'll double check that. So that may be yet a third scenario. but we'll follow up on that and make sure that we, hopefully, Maria Valero, I saw her, or Pam, hopefully we can communicate this to the whole group as a follow-up, right? Okay, please. Okay, I'm sorry. I know you were somewhere. Okay. All right, great. Thanks. So the next thing I want to discuss is spend validations. And this goes somewhat hand in hand with everything I've already just said. So we have been able to make Workday help us work more efficiently and smarter on controlling expenditures. Okay, so one of the things that we recently did is we've been able to implement spend validations on awards. Okay, so this is new. It went live about a month ago. Yeah, it's just about 4 weeks or so ago. What spend validations do is they allow us to control expenditures that should otherwise not be incurred because of the timing of the expenditures. So this has only to do with timing of expenditures compared to your awards or your award lines. Okay, so what it does is the system now looks at certain expenditure types and it looks at the award or the award line dates. It's either or depending on the type of expenditure. And then based on that, it may give you an error saying that the grant is no longer valid. Okay, so you will get an error if you are outside of your contract dates or award line dates. The error will look like this. Okay, grant ID is invalid, transaction is outside the period of performance for the selected grants. Okay, or grant. So the type of validations that we have set up are listed here. If it's a requisition or a PO that you're trying to issue, it's going to look right now, and we're tweaking this a little bit, but right now it's looking at contract dates, meaning your real true award beginning and end date. Okay, this is going to be tweaked in the near future to look at the beginning award line date and the ending contract date. So what this means is, as long as you're within those dates, you should be fine. If you're trying to do a requisition, for example, or a change order or a PO that is after the award has ended, it's going to give you that error. Same thing with expense reports. Go ahead.
When we work with NIH grants, they usually do a number of days, and particularly working with subcontracts, sometimes it takes them a while to do their final invoices and making sure. And so after the end of the grant, is that when it gets cut off, or is it after the 120 days after?
So the question is, when is the cutoff exactly? Is it after the end of the award, or is it after the end of the award line dates? And the answer is, it depends. You need to look at which one of the types of expenditures you're talking about here. So for example, a new requisition or a new PO cannot be issued after the award date. Okay, if the award ends today, you will not be able to do a new requisition tomorrow. The thought behind that is you should not incur new expenditures after today. Okay, so requisitions and PO are specifically looking at award dates, and those are the only two that are looking at award dates. Okay, meaning the true award date given by NIH in this case, right? Everything else is based on award line dates, which is the award plus the 60 days or the 30 days that we have given you to close it out. Okay, so everything else, expense reports, supplier invoices, including invoices from SOPs, as well as cost transfers, would be based on award line dates. Okay, now, having said that, I know that there are two things going on here. One is, it's a change of culture, honestly. You know, we didn't have that type of control before, so we all are trying to get used to it. But also, we realize that especially with supplier invoices from SOPs, as hard as you may try, they are not always good with, the subs are not always good with getting us an invoice as quickly as we need to get it. So we need your help in pushing this, but it is not to say that, especially as we have just implemented and rolled this out, that we wouldn't work with you. I mean, we certainly are. And I'm seeing some of the requests and the tickets and the emails that are coming through. So I certainly am aware of the fact that there is communication from the department, from AP, etc., to us to say, hey, this errored out, why? And in some cases, it really truly would not be allowed, that we would get back with you and say, hey, no, we cannot put this through anymore. In other cases, it may be that we have to tweak the award line date to allow for that to go through. So we're working with you to make sure that that there is a smooth transition in what we used to do versus how we're doing business now. But please be aware of them. If you see the errors, please don't hesitate. If you have any doubt as to whether or not the error is correct, just please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And I think, sure, questions?
Change order request, you said they're gonna be treated as requisitions, or do the contract dates?
Can you repeat that on the change order request? Oh yeah, okay. So yeah, so how do change order request works? Is it looking at your contract date or your award line date is what the question is? It is looking at contract dates. We had a couple of situations where a PO was done within the award dates. Final invoice comes in after the award date, but within your award line dates. And now, because of the change or the difference between the invoiced amount and the PO amount, a change order is needed. In those cases, my team would definitely, we would work with supply chain, I guess, and our AP to make sure that we would allow for the change order to go through. It would give a stop initially, but if it is something that upon review we've determined that it is allowable, we would make sure that the change order can go through. Other questions? If not, Maria, and I'll be back. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Maria Ortiz, and I have been with the Workday team for 3 years now. And it has been a challenge, just the same as to believe to everyone. So Workday, as we all know, is a cloud system. And when Workday decides to push something new, UM has to upload it and take it so there's no opportunity to say, no, I don't want this. We have to take it. So Workday made some changes to the look, which is in information technology, like they call it user interface. But really what it is a new look. A new look that I'm sure everybody had experienced already for about 2 weeks. And I'm sure everybody was surprised to see it. The biggest change for the new look in Workday came into awards. And I'm saying awards. I'm not saying grants or reports. And the grant looks the same. The grant, as you've seen it, only has very little information. It has your cost center, the fund, and the fund, cost center, and financial class. As you know, the grant doesn't have any dates, doesn't have anything related to the award. So this is the new look in Workday. So now you see it's green. This time we were allowed to use our preference in color, which is green. So this is the view award. So now in the new look, we have, I would say, a band on the top. The information from previously is the same, just that things have been moved around. So we'll see the sponsor reference number. The sponsor is listed, the FNA and the direct cost on the FNA, cost share if it's applicable, the award contract dates. As we know, there's contract dates, there's start dates, and there are award lines in Workday. There's 3 sets of dates. The CFDA number is on the top, and now also on number 5 is called proposal ID. In the past, it used to be institutional ID. So now it's a proposal ID, so just the term has changed. And on label number 7 is the overview. This is the default. Every time you bring up an award, you'll see this first page, and everything defaults into the overview. So on this slide, there's tabs right on the top. In previously Workday, the tabs were at the bottom of the page. And these tabs, we're going to call it primary tabs and sub-tabs. So again, this is the default. So when you go into the search box and type AWD and your award number, this is what's going to come up. So now let's go more into detail. So like I mentioned, you have the sponsor reference ID on the top that we also used to call award number. You have your direct, you have your contract dates. So now on the tabs, you have the overview. When we are in the overview, when you select overview and select summary, this is what you'll be looking at. You have the company, you have the name of the award, you have the CFDA, the cost center who owns the award is on the right. And also right in the middle of the page, we see a billing schedule. As you might be aware, every award requires a billing schedule. A billing schedule is used to create invoices, which they create accounts receivable for UM. Clinical trials do not have a billing schedule, and that hasn't changed either. So let's go more into detail into the tabs. Also, if you scroll down on that same page, you'll see the award calendar. The award calendar now is expanded. In the past, it was all compressed, collapsed, and you have to click on the award to see the dates. Now, the award is expanded at the bottom of the page. So now I'm in the award lines, the second tab. There's 3 tabs for award lines. And remember that, like Edwin mentioned, so each you have 1 award, and you can have 1 award line and 1 grant. An award can have multiple award lines and multiple grants. And the grant, like I said before, doesn't have any information about the award, doesn't have dates, but the award line drives the dates. So the award line is very important, especially now with the spend validations, because it drives how the grant is going to behave. The award line has your F&A rate, so it's not in the grant, but it's in the award line. If the award line is incorrect, then when you look at your grant transaction report or your award transaction report, it's going to have incorrect information, but it's not because the grant is incorrect, but it's because the award line might be incorrect. So award and award lines, the award line is very important to look at dates and all the information. So this is the first report, award lines overview, and it lists all the information, attributes that were either converted or were created during the award creation. It has the grant, all the grants listed. I'm still in award lines. This is additional information. This is where you see your F&A rate, and you see your billing schedule also. This is the award lines. Again, this is the award line. This has not changed, and this is where the information, all the attributes that drive your grant are in. This is all the details. The next tab, billing and receivables. On this tab, you have the schedule, so you'll see the schedule type. Also, you have on number 4, the name of the billing schedule and the award line that is tied to the billing schedule. Because we can have different award lines, multiple award lines, and we can have multiple billing schedules. This details which award line is tied to a billing schedule. On billing and receivables tab, which is brand new, this is something that is brand new in Workday. The invoices for the award are visible, but this is mainly for the Office of Research Administration. Remember, everything that you see in Workday is based on your role. So I'm showing you everything that is available, but not everything that is available to you as a cost center manager or cost center sponsor programs manager, but it's visible to, this is mainly visible to the Office of Research Administration, to the billing specialist. If you recall, if you want to see an invoice, you go to the award lines, and on the award line, on the billed amount, if you click on that number, you can see this, the invoices there. If you're a CCM or CCSPM. Additional reports. This is also new. And this is, I believe, one of the best enhancements for Workday, because it has been a challenge for us to understand that there's roles at the award line and there's roles at the grant. So now what they have done is they have put it together. So you have, it's on the additional reports. So you have the award header roles and the grant roles next to each other, different tabs, but they're there. And I know, like I said, this has been a challenge for all of us to understand that there's roles at the award and there's roles at the grant. In this case, we see the award analyst listed and the lead principal investigator. And here we're in the same report. Now we're looking at the grant roles. And this is visible to everyone: CCM, CCSPM, award analyst. Another tab that is new is sub-awards. Now, if your award doesn't have a sub-award, this tab is not visible. It is visible for the same happens for the ORA staff. If the award doesn't have a sub-award, you will not be able to see it. The first tab, the maintain sub-awards, is something that the Office of Research Administration uses. So that will not, when you click on it, it will not be visible to you, but it's visible to the Office of Research Administration. The basis limit, it is thus visible to everyone. When I mean everyone, award analysts, CCM, and CCSPM. So those, I think the best, and like I said, the best enhancement has been billing and receivables for the Office of Research Administration, because they can see all the invoices in one place. The additional reports is visible to everyone, and the tab for sub-awards. The information remains the same, just is displayed differently. Anybody has any questions? No? So back to Edwin.
So as I was sitting down, I realized I want to just clarify one thing on the cash applications, question that Kelly had earlier. I want to single out clinical trials, specifically pharmaceutically funded clinical trials. On those, we are current. As the payments are coming in, they are posted. It has been the case since, I think, February, roughly. So it's for several months now. But I just want to clarify that, because I did say earlier that we're still doing post-conversion cleanup and activities. Okay. So the next thing I want to discuss, just really short here, is purchases on federal awards. Just take you back in time. If you recall, in 2014, December 2014, the uniform guidance went in effect. And there was one, maybe several, but one of the biggest surprises to the community was the section on procurement. And it was a significant change to what the requirements are for recipients of federal awards. Okay, and the community pushed back. So a lot of universities and research institutions pushed back. And as a result, OMB has been giving extensions year after year after year. I think it was a total of 3 extensions. And the last extension basically expired the end of last fiscal year. So the extension basically was that while the uniform guidance applied to all of us, the section on procurement did not. Okay, and that we could still use the old OMB A110 requirements for procurement. Okay, so that's no longer the case. So the uniform guidance basically, recently the OMB issued a additional clarification to what the requirements are. The official requirements are that basically the micro purchase threshold NSET is kept at $10,000 at this point. So MP, your micro purchase threshold ends at 10, and your small purchases start at $10,000. Okay, so actually your micro purchase threshold ends at $9,999, right? And then anything $10,000 or above now is subject to the small purchases requirements. So that's between 10,000 and the next level, I think, is $175,000 right now, or the institution's bid limit, which in UM's case is 25,000. So in our case, even though the UG has a higher threshold, in our case, the small purchases threshold is between 10,000 and 25,000. Okay? So having said that, now there is a requirement that the UG is in effect, the procurement section of the UG is in effect, and small purchases require multiple quotes if a purchase is made that is over $10,000. Okay, so between 10,000 and 25 for UM, we need multiple quotes basically. All right, so this is keeping us in compliance with the uniform guidance, and it really only applies for federal and federal flow-through funds. So if you have a purchase over $10,000 on a federal award or a federal flow-through award, this is applicable to you. Okay. So we have been able to work with the ERP team and set some configuration in the system to make sure that there is an additional routing step that looks at everything that I just explained. Okay, purchases on the federal award, federal flow-through award, over $10,000 will go through an extra step. They will go to the director of purchasing to make sure that multiple quotes have been included. A minimum of 3 quotes is required in order for you to make the order. Questions on that? Hi. So there is a sole source. So that is one of the 5 procurement methods that the uniform guidance allows. Sole sourcing is an allowable method provided that you comply with the requirements of sole sourcing. Ida.
Contracts already set up with different vendors and purchase based on that contract.
If you have a contract set up with a particular vendor already, and you're incurring or you're making new purchases, so you have a PO set up, is just to clarify, right? Is that what you're saying? Okay. So without looking at the specifics to see if it qualifies for the sole source, the question is she already has a contract for images. I know that is unique to her area. And the question is, do I now need to do a sole source? Let's take this back and talk about and look at the specifics. The immediate answer is you do have to comply with this procurement method, and therefore possibly may need multiple quotes. Okay, but is sole sourcing an option? I don't know yet. Let's look at the specifics and see if we can talk about it. Okay, Barbara. Sure.
So a couple of things I wanted to mention here. When you think about, if has already bid it out, and had multiple sources, if it's a contract, you
Yes.
can certainly use that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you don't have to do anything. But one thing most people are not thinking about is when you have a consultant is a vendor.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to pay a consultant 10,000 or more, you're going to have to put a justification on that. We do have some language that we're going to put up on the website that will help you through consultants as vendors and what language you might want to use for that. Similar to sole source, but not quite sole source, or the way you describe that particular consultant. And so look for that this week as well. Because that's the sticky point most people don't think about is consultants.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions, Kelly? And no, if it's a service center, it doesn't apply. This is for external vendors or suppliers. Other questions? If not, Maria, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Maria Valero Martinez. I'm manager for research training. First of all, I want to thank all of you who participated in our research administration at the U program earlier this year. I think you all deserve a hand for sticking with us. Just wanted to give you a little update on how it went. So if you participated in this program, it was mandatory based on the role. So if you had access in Workday as a cost center sponsored programs manager, grants manager, or grant financial analyst, or department administrator role in InfoEd, you were required to take this mandatory training. This is the overview of the research administration at the U, as all of you know, if you successfully completed it. So we had our introduction to ORA, the CBL, available in ULearn, and then we had our 3-day sessions. We actually had 15 of these sessions. We brought in a consultant who provided content for us for day 1, and they conducted 3 of those sessions. If you had the opportunity to be there for that, those 3 subject matter experts we brought in did a great job. And we actually took on the 2 makeup sessions, and I think our ORA leaders did a fabulous job in those 2 makeup sessions as well. Day 1 included the basics of research administration, so it was, the fundamentals, and it included the uniform guidance, which is our main compliance that we need to abide by for research administration. Our day 2 was primarily pre-award processes. We had a section on service centers and effort certification as well. And then finally, the day 3 sessions were the post-award processes and export control issues. During this period of time, those 15 sessions, we had over 300 participants in the program that successfully completed it. And took an assessment. because that was the final step in order to retain the credentials. You had to take an assessment, score 80% or better, and we actually had 94% pass with a score of 80% or better. The intention of our assessment was to make sure that the individuals that participated in the program had the basic knowledge, and we wanted to make sure that that was captured. Average passing score was 90.7%. So what happens next? Well, we are continuing the program. If you don't already know that, we actually started our fall offering of this. We have 12 individuals that attended day 1 on September 11th. We're having our day 2 session coming up this week, and we will be offering it again on a quarterly basis. So individuals that are new to the institution or that somehow their roles may have changed, we will be capturing them and having them attend these sessions as well. So if you have new staff coming on board, by all means, either let us know or let them know that this will be offered and it will be available through ULearn. And that was my quick update on our research administration at the U program. So thank you. Next up, we have Alan.
Good morning, everyone. I think a lot of you have already seen the PI portal. By show of hands, how many of you have seen and gone into the PI portal? Okay, so a fair number of you. I'm just going to take a brief moment and kind of toggle over here, if I can, to the website and just kind of show you real quickly how to get in there. And at the same time, I'm going to talk about one of the things that we've been noticing is while we do have a fair number of individuals from the administrative side that are going into the PI portal, and that is great, and we really appreciate your efforts in that, because that's one of the main reasons why we wanted to get that out there. By its very name, it is the PI portal, and I think I have to get my phone for, maybe not. We may not have Duo set up here. Yeah. One of the things that it is set up for is for faculty. And so we really want to encourage faculty to go in there whenever they have questions about their own portfolios, their own access. We want to make sure that they are familiar with it, that they know how to get to it, and they know how to answer a lot of these questions. Because there's a lot of times where a faculty member may have questions about something regarding their project, regarding the status of what their contract is. They may want to even know if it's been routed to our office or where the process is. And rather than calling one of you to ask you where it is or calling us to find out what the status of it is, they can get a quick update by just going to the PI portal. And it would really be helpful if you could share that information with them, encourage them to go to it, show it to them. We have tried to do outreach with faculty to show them the PI portal, share that with them at their faculty retreats, at faculty senate meetings. But you guys are the front line. You are the ones that are out there discussing with faculty. You meet with them on a more regular basis, definitely, than we do. And so any help that you guys can provide with that, we would greatly appreciate it. If there's an opportunity where we can come to one of your meetings and demo this to the faculty, if you want us to do a 5-minute, if you want us to do a 20-minute, whatever time you need us to fill, whatever you could provide us, we will be more than happy to come out and demo this for faculty. If you have some faculty that are very particular and want to ask a lot of questions, we can come out and meet with them on an individual basis. We are looking to do more of this type of reporting as we go forward. We would like to expand the use of this system and the functionality within, but in order to do so, it really would help if, we knew that there was some benefit to it. If the faculty is going to go in there and leverage this tool, leverage the functionality that's in there, we're definitely going to invest more time and effort in it. But if it's a tool that's mostly for administrative staff, then we might take a different approach with it. We may not invest so much time and effort in how the faculty are going to receive that information. And instead, we'd reach out and find out how it is that the administrators are going to utilize that information. So it's really helpful for us to see who it is that's using it, and if faculty are going to be utilizing it, we can definitely gear some things towards them. So any and all feedback is welcome, and any opportunities that you guys have towards sharing this with them or providing us a platform to share with them, we would greatly appreciate it. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar, just a brief overview. It's the Research Reporting System, RRS. It's research.miami.edu. It's cane ID and password. Once you go in there, it's under the Sponsored Research tab, and it's the PI portal. Now, in the overall in the RRS, the awards and expenditures are static as of August 31st, 2017, when the legacy system was shut down and we went live with Workday. But proposals and all pre-award activity is current as of yesterday. So it's current through the end of the day yesterday. We're still receiving feeds on that. The PI portal here, it shows information dependent upon how your access is set up in the system. If you're a faculty member, you would see your own portfolio. If you're administrator, you would see whatever access you have, whether it's a department access, center or institute, or if you've been given delegate access to see a particular faculty member's portfolio, you'd be able to see that as well. And then one neat feature that I like to show off here is once you click into one of these projects, we have the ability to see the individual that's working on it. And you can click on their name and it'll pop up a little box that gives you their contact information, their email address and their phone number. So if you wanted to reach out to them and talk to them, you can. I just see there that we have to update the system to provide Daniel's phone number. I blame Workday. No, I'm just kidding. And one of the things that we've gotten feedback on is that the colors here are very difficult to read on screen. And we agree wholeheartedly. And that's why there's this PDF that you can click on. And that's up here in the upper left-hand corner of a particular project. And doing so will open up another tab in your browser. And what that will show is, rather than showing you the colors represented for the project updates, it'll give you a printable version that you could maybe share with your faculty member, showing them any and all status updates that have been done. So it'll show you, it may have a project where there's a long waiting for sponsor or pending ORA, and you may wonder, why is it not being updated? But when you click in there, you'll see there may have been multiple updates happening in that time period, and we're just not changing the color because it doesn't make sense to change the color from the same color. So we would show you more details here. Any questions on the PI portal?
Is that just all sponsored grants or is it specific to clinical?
So the question is, does it list all sponsored or is it specific to clinical only? That is all pre-award contract activities. So if it's a clinical contract, an MCA budget and clinical contract, it'll show it here. And it'll show it as a clinical trial agreement in this type. However, if it's an outbound subaward on a federal contract, on a federal award, it'll show it there. If it's a CDA, confidentiality agreement, or an MTA, a material transfer agreement, it will also show it there. It's any and all negotiated agreements being handled by our pre-award office. We don't at this time show applications information, and that's typically because we have such a short turnaround time on applications, predominantly because despite your best efforts, despite our best efforts, we try and get faculty to send them in well in advance of the deadline. Our numbers show that that's not happening. And so because we get them right at deadline day, it doesn't make sense to put them here on the PI portal for them to just disappear that same day. So we don't show applications information here, but all contract activities would be shown here. Any other questions? Okay. And then the other thing that we wanted to kind of share with you is a refresher for those that are either new or not familiar with our website, and that's the how to submit page. For those of you who don't go into our website, I would encourage you to do so. A lot of you that If all of you did, I think most of you did take that research admin at the U training program. 95 to not say 100% of the information that was obtained in that training is information that in one way, shape, or form is available on our website. And that's by design. We wanted the training to be formatted in such a way that it made sense, that it had a path and it had some kind of message that we were able to convey to you. But we ultimately wanted the information to be available to you when you go back to your desks and when you're doing your job on a regular basis. So we tried very hard to keep that information updated and maintained on our website. And not only that, we may have provided resources in that training, in the handouts and tip sheets or whatever, that over time will become stale. As processes change, as information changes, we will obviously update that on our website. So we encourage you to always go back to our website, go back for the freshest and the latest and greatest information, because that's where you're going to find it. And one of the things that changes quite often in our office is this submitting to ORA page. As we make changes to our processes, as we identify new areas that we're responsible for, or if there's any shifts in our documentation, we would update it here, because we fully anticipate that this is one of the main avenues through which things are going to go through if you're handling a document that you don't ordinarily. Say your department typically does applications, and all of a sudden you get a contract activity. We've tried to organize it so you could find the information that you need here on the ORA website in the how to submit page. You can go here and let's say it's a agreement where UM is not receiving funds. You can click on there. Let's say it's a master agreement. And you get one of these, you say, what is a master agreement? Well, you can click there and you can at least know that you need a PCRFS, you need a draft of the document, and then once you receive it, you submit it over to the CRIS mailbox. So this provides you with what you need to submit, when do you need to submit it to our office, and where does it need to be sent to. So this is trying to provide you with that information, and we've organized it alphabetically here by the types of agreements. And this is all activities within ORA, not just pre-award. If it's a post-award activity, if it's export control related, we have that information here on our website and how you can reach out to the individual in charge of that area as well. So whatever it is that you need to reach out to our office, we try and make it available to you so you can get to the right individual, get to the right department as quickly, as easily as you can. Any questions on that? Go back to the PowerPoint. I went into the system rather than doing it through the PowerPoint, but you can see there one big example that we show is that PCRFL for an application, because that is one of the key drivers there. We even provide here a link to our policy on the application submission deadline policy. We want you to be aware of it in case a faculty member is not is providing a little bit of resistance on that policy and asks you why, where is that in writing, show it to me. I don't believe you. It's here on our website. It's quick, it's easy to show. That's where that information is. We have information on the FNA moratorium that was put out by the provost and where that background information is. So we try and put all of that information collected in one place. Barbara, you wanted to add in?
Yes, I do. So a couple of things that Alan's bringing up here on this particular example. You've heard me talk about, we have a policy deadline and hardly anybody follows it. And so far there haven't been any repercussions from that other than a letter saying, hey, you didn't make the deadline. We got it way too late to review it. You should be aware of that, okay? Each time I come up here, there's more and more talk. I just attended a faculty council meeting here last week where faculty were talking about perceived special treatment, that they've had an application in ahead of time and then somebody else bumps them because they're brought in late. And I said, yeah, sometimes that happens because we're just trying to get them all out. The research deans have been discussing putting teeth in this policy. And I believe it's really coming soon. I also believed it's probably going to be phased in where you're not penalized probably for about the next 4 or 5 months. But it's coming, which means if you come to the last day and you're within the last couple of hours and we can't have a chance to review it, we will say, go ahead and do it the next cycle. Now that is the reason we're trying to phase this in, because it just doesn't affect us. It affects you. You guys are getting this late, most of you. So you have to start planning in advance. So your faculty member doesn't decide 2 days beforehand to put in a submission. Now, there's always those exceptions. Somebody just told them about something great and they're going to put it through. There's also faculty who tell us that, oh, I'm putting this in because I get credit points for it for my annual merit, you know, and the stuff is not so good. But for the most part, people know they're doing something ahead of time. So I urge you, because you're at the front lines, if you're doing something ahead of time, you really need to discuss with your faculty member on how to do this properly. They're very busy people, you're very busy people, and waiting to the last minute does not help. That adage that, you know, I want to tweak the science until the cows come home because it's going to be better, has been shown in several different analyses at the federal level that it really doesn't seem to make a difference. Now, with certain people it might, with others it might not. So this is going to come. I assume it's going to be in by the beginning of the next fiscal year, but we're going to start trying it out sooner, as soon as the research deans meet on this. So that is a huge culture change. I've had faculty come from other institutions that when they've come here and they're surprised, because some of them say, well, gosh, if I didn't get it in 2 weeks ahead of time, they wouldn't review it. That is not what's happening here. And getting it in 2 weeks ahead of time, let me clarify that. It doesn't mean that, oh, you've submitted some things to us. That's a game everybody seems to play. You know, oh, I've submitted it to you, but it has multiple revisions. Revisions we can work with if we find errors, but don't give us 2 pieces and then give us 2 other pieces and so forth. We're really concerned not only about us, but we're concerned about the job you have to do too. So we're going to have to work on that together, and we will probably have a special session when that comes. But I want to tell you, I believe it's coming. The second thing is this F&A moratorium. So when the provost came in last year, he wanted to see anything where the F&A was being reduced over and above what the agency allows. And when I say agency allowing, I mean in their published guidelines, not a letter from the president of the foundation because the PI talked to them and they sent us a letter. Sometimes the letter is valid, sometimes it is not. We just had an instance last week with a faculty member who wrote, a department chair who wrote me saying, you know, ORA has it in their head that they need a waiver, a request. And I don't know what they're thinking, this is service. Well, anything that comes through us in that, whether it's instruction, research, or other sponsored, sometimes service is a part of that comes through there. It all costs money. It all has indirect costs. And the provost, as well as the deans, are very interested in getting that indirect cost in, because on the flip side, it helps operate and run your institution. So, you know, asking for a waiver is not because we want to go through it and make the faculty member mad. And frankly, enough emails went back and forth in this particular one. If they had asked for a waiver, it would have been taken care of long before all the emails went through. Now, some of the waivers are not approved. Most of them are approved, or they're approved conditionally as don't do this again. We all know there are agencies and foundations that don't want to give us money for F&A. Sometimes we are negotiating with the state for more F&A, and sometimes we get it, sometimes we don't. But the process for a waiver, and this all comes in getting the, going back to even the time frame. If you know you've got a capped amount and you can't possibly do the research, and this is seed to try to get other research that will have a federal FNA or whatever, then you know you're going to be asking for a waiver ahead of time. That's one of those documents you want to get in ahead of time. The last thing you want to do is get that in late, because you don't want the vice provost or the provost going, here's this guy or this gal again asking it for me, and they need it tomorrow. So that's one of the things that you could point out to your faculty if they're contemplating a waiver, that be asked for way ahead of time with a true good justification. We are cutting down on the waivers. We looked at them last year, we looked at them this year. It's starting to make sense. We don't need to think that somebody's not going to give us money. If it's worthwhile research, we're going to get the funds. If the research plan is good, we're going to get the funds. Most often, we're going to get the waivers. And the last thing we can do is ask for waivers when the faculty is involved with the startup company, that the faculty also sits on the scientific board. Now, I realized I've covered a lot of things here, but I'm just trying to set the tone a little bit about we have a business process to follow. We want to bring money in. We want the direct costs and we want the indirect costs as much as possible. Exceptions are us as well. Any questions? That was my soapbox for the morning. Are you finished at this point?
Yep.
I think Jill's up next, and she's got a variety of things to talk about. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Jill Tincher. I'm the Executive Director of the Pre-Award Unit. Thank you for coming this morning. One last comment on the slide that Barbara and Alan were just going over. Just recently, we had a situation where someone provided us a PCRFL. It was outdated, and data elements that we are capturing today weren't on the form because they had used an old form. We've said this for years. Please, please, please download the form directly from our website each time you fill it out. If you don't do that, you risk utilizing an outdated version where we are not capturing all of the information needed. That's why in this prior slide, you'll see that we even have a hyperlink to the form itself. That'll facilitate it, as well as going directly to the form section of our website. Okay, my first topic is talking to you a little bit about monitoring of subawards, but it's also applicable when you are monitoring Jackson work orders. As most of you already know, when you have a project that anticipates utilizing an outbound subcontractor or anticipates utilizing Jackson services, you fill out a form. It's called the Jackson Outbound Subaward Request Form, and you identify the period that we're going to be engaging the entity. You also identify the dollar amount that we are going to be engaging the entity for. Sometimes you're partnering with ORA because we're building a budget or we're helping you facilitate what that actual dollar amount is, but the anticipation is it is being identified by the PI and identified by the department. All of the relevant documentation is attached to the form, and then it is submitted to ORA. What we are finding is that principal investigators and the departmental administrators aren't always monitoring that end date. There needs to be an extension, or maybe there needs to be an increase in dollar amount. They're not monitoring it as closely as they could. So we want to send out that reminder to you to please make certain that you are monitoring. When you all identify a period of time, let's say it's a 1-year period of time for $100,000, you shouldn't be continuing work beyond that period of time without an amendment in place. And so if you're monitoring when that project is going to end or when that engagement is going to end, it allows you to be proactive in seeking an extension or seeking an increase where appropriate. We just recently had some situations where Jackson came back to ORA. We were able to do some research for them. They were concerned because some projects were continuing to be ongoing beyond the Jackson work order period of time. And they were very concerned. We were as well. So we wanted to take the opportunity to inform you and make certain that everyone is working collaboratively in that regard. In addition to that, you may all say to yourselves, how am I supposed to manage it? How am I supposed to know all of these different outbound subcontracts that we have, all of these different Jackson work orders when they're about to expire? So one of the things that I have done is I've talked to both Maria Ortiz and Edwin. They're going to look at Workday functionality to see if we can pull a report, see if we can send you advance notices so that you can work a little bit more proactively as opposed to having to monitor and maintain this information in a secondary system or on your Outlook calendar. So stay tuned. Maria.
I wanted to make, everybody's familiar with the report, Find My Silver Awards. Everybody uses the report, Find My Silver Awards. The report has the SPC, it has your award number, also has the dates of the award line, and it has the dates of the SPC. And it has the amounts that have been paid and the remaining balance. So that's a very crucial report. Find My Silver Awards. The CCSPM has access to the report.
So Maria's reminding everyone that through Workday, there is a Find My Subaward report that you can pull up. CCSPMs have access to this report. What it enables them to do is see all of the relevant information, including the dates, including the amounts for each of their subawards. So you want to make certain that if you aren't already familiar with that report, you become familiar because it'll aid you in that process. Okay? So one of the things that I just wanted to remind you, if you need an extension or if you need an increase, PI and department should be proactive. I think monitoring those end dates and those dollar amounts and contacting ORA in advance of that deadline or in advance of exhausting all of the funds, that would be your proactive endeavor. You want to compile the documents, so the scope, the budget, and the justification that go along with that extension where applicable. And you also want to provide us an updated Jackson outbound subaward request form. That is where you're going to actually address the fact that you want to extend the period of performance as well as increase the dollar amounts. Okay? All of the above should occur in advance of the expiration date. They should also occur in advance of exhausting all of the funds or utilizing all of the funds. Cynthia.
What can we do at times where the grant is ending, but the work is going to continue? Do we have departmental funds or other sources of funds? Do we have to start over the Jackson process?
So the question was, what do we do if the project is coming to an end, but the activity will continue on non-sponsored funds as opposed to the sponsored funds? I think that those are more the exception than they are the norm, but I would reach out to us and we will help facilitate that. Please be mindful where there's going to be facilitation needed is we handle externally funded activities. Business services typically handles internal funds. But I will tell you a good caveat associated with that. The business services unit used to utilize a totally different work order or service agreement process. It was much more cumbersome. We recently provided them our work order language, and they are reviewing it with the general counsel's office to implement a like process. So that'll facilitate that transition much more smoothly. So stay tuned for that. Angel? Is there a no-cost extension process to the subaward and the Jackson work order? It's just an extension. You would utilize the form. You would explain that you need an extension. You would address what work is going to be ongoing during that extension period and if there is new funds associated. So same form, same pick list options. It would just be extending the scope.
Do you need a budget and scope as well?
So do we need a budget and scope? Yes, if you go to submitting to ORA, whether it is you're trying to create an outbound subaward or you're trying to create a Jackson work order or extend those vehicles, in all of those cases, if there's additional funds, you're going to need budget. And in all of those cases, you are going to have to identify what the scope is and what the parameters are associated with the funds. So yes. Okay. Any other questions on this one? Okay. The next topic is the Medicare, sorry for the typo, Medicare coverage analysis. So a few things. First and foremost, most of you should know what a Medicare coverage analysis is. Tatiana Viklanceva's group, what they do is they look at the protocol and they identify the schedule of assessments, what procedures are going to occur during the life cycle of a project. They look at various federal and state determinations. They identify whether those schedule of event procedures should be covered by standard of care or whether they should be covered by the sponsor. And they do so in a grid. And they write notations about where they got their rationale from and so forth. It's a really, really important document that memorializes by study the associated activities, who is responsible for payment and so forth. But what's really, really important is they are doing so based upon these national coverage decisions that exist, but they're not the physician. Therefore, there may be a nuance associated medically that the physician knows that might drive whether something is standard of care or not. And we need their insight. We need to understand where they're coming from in order to find the associated determination and reflect in our Medicare coverage analysis that decision. So what we require is once a Medicare coverage analysis is developed, we provide it to the investigator. The investigator is supposed to carefully review it. If they see things that they question, they should be coming back to us and asking questions. If they have insight that they think that we haven't taken into consideration, they need to provide that information to us as well. That allows us to ensure that the final product is as accurate as it possibly can be. And then the physician actually has to approve it. Now, we know that some of you are involved in that process. Every organization here is different. In some cases, a departmental administrator or a VCA may be involved in the process. In other cases, it could be a study or a clinical coordinator that are involved. So we want to make you aware of how important this document is and how important it is to make certain that that review is occurring, and if questions are arising when you are doing that review, that you bring those to our attention. Unfortunately, what happens in some cases is we send out the Medicare coverage analysis and almost instantaneously we get back, this is approved. In some cases, the document is multiple pages long, and it is most definitely multiple lines and multiple columns. So we find it hard to believe that someone has done a thorough and appropriate review if, in fact, they're approving it so quickly. And so we want to involve everyone. We want to make everybody aware of this need. So as a result of that, one of the feedback that we've gotten from our investigators and from the Department of Personnel is, we don't even know how to read it. It's a really complicated document. As I said, many lines, many pages, many columns. I really don't know what it is that I'm supposed to be looking at. I also don't know how to review it as far as my scientific or medical knowledge. How am I supposed to review it? So one of the things that Tatiana has done just recently is she created a one page, but it's actually double-sided document. On one page, she gives some really high-level information that is need to know. So how do you read an MCA? What are the different determinations and what do those determinations translate into? Who is responsible to do a review? And then she gives you a 9-step process of what it is that you're actually supposed to be doing to review the document as carefully as you should. On the flip side of the document, we show you sections of an MCA and we put the numbers 1 through 9. So we reference on the front, step 1, make certain, I'm going to say this wrong, Tatiana, so bear with me. One of the steps is make certain that the protocol version that you are aware of is the protocol version reflected in the document, because sometimes there's a disconnect. So it'll show you where that step is on the front side of the page, and on the back side, image-wise, it'll show you where you're going to find that within an MCA. It is a great tool. We are going to be placing it on our website, but instead of doing it before today's session, I'm using today as a teaser. Here's why. The Office of Research Administration has been doing brown bag discussion groups for quite some time. Usually what happens is we invite all of you all to come to a session. There's usually a pre-award representative, a post-award representative, and an SI representative, and we allow you to bring to us any questions you may or may not have. We are changing the model, and this week's session is going to be the first under the new model. Essentially what we did was we advertised in advance a topical area. We advertised in advance who the guest speaker is that is going to be leading that discussion. First half of the brown bag discussion is going to be related to that topical area, and then the last half of the brown bag discussion is going to be an open forum. So this week, Tatiana is going to be present. She is going to have copies of the MCA tip sheet. She's going to show you exactly what we need to do in order to review and to approve an MCA. You can walk away with the tip sheet, but you can also do so after she does a really good, thorough review for you. Okay, so this week's brown bag is noon, September 25th. It's going to be in SOFR, otherwise known as the CRB, in room 1270. Please register in advance through ULearn. Because this is a new forum, it could be crowded, so reserve your seat in advance. Any questions about this? And then after this week's brown bag session, that's when we will post it on the website, and we will announce that it's there so that you can access it. Okay? Few more topics I think coming up. Protocol amendments. I mentioned to you just a moment ago, sometimes the investigator knows that we're working on protocol version 5. And if you look at the MCA was developed based upon protocol number 3. How does that happen? You all tell me, how does that happen? Often what happens is our sponsors provide updated versions of a protocol directly to the PI in the department. PI and department probably engage HSRO, our Human Subjects Research Office, but they may not engage ORA. And so sometimes we're working off of differing documents. So here's what we hope is going to happen. So as I said a moment ago, during the life of the project, the protocol could be amended for a variety of reasons. Sometimes there's a financial and primarily a financial or a business side to that amendment, but sometimes there is not. Sometimes they may just be adding a performance location, but there's no real change to the procedures that are actually occurring. You all probably have as your standard practice to go ahead and provide that amended protocol to the HSRO. That's good. That is a step that you're supposed to be doing. But you should also look at that protocol amendment, see if there's any administrative financial areas of concern. And if there are, you should also be engaging ORA. What that allows us to do is go through the protocol, compare it to the MCA that was last developed. If there is an adjustment that's needed to that MCA, we will go ahead and do so, and then we will recirculate it. What this does is it really helps make certain that we are capturing any new procedures. If there's procedures that have been removed, if we're adding different drugs, if we're adding different devices, that we are capturing it and we are correctly identifying who is responsible to support those costs. Unfortunately, sometimes ORA isn't engaged, and that's where a disconnect occurs. So we want to make certain that you are aware. HSRO, yes, you should contact them, but there's not an automatic feed between the HSRO and ORA, so you need to make certain that it comes to us as well. Alan demoed just a little while ago submitting to ORA. In that pick list, there are 2 different options for you to use. If you just want to request an MCA revision, sometimes that occurs because the investigator looks over the MCA a month, a year into the study and sees that there might be a possible discrepancy, that's okay. Let us know. Again, pick it from submitting to ORA. We will outline for you what you need to send us, when you need to send it, and where you need to send it. That affords our team to look it over and assess whether a revision is warranted or not. Other times what may happen is your sponsor may engage you, provide you an amended protocol, but also they may ask for a budget and they may initiate an amendment to the contract as well. So we have that as a separate pick list option. You can request an MCA budget and contract revision. Again, we tell you what and when and where you need to send it. We will go ahead and record that into our queue and we will start to work on it, okay? If either of these processes doesn't occur, if you learn of a protocol amendment and you don't engage ORA when needed, what we are risking is various compliance issues occurring. One of the biggest ones is that bills will drop incorrectly. What we're talking about there is the patient may receive an invoice that he or she may not or should not have received, and it's usually driven by the documents being out of sync. So we want to avoid that. We also want to avoid billing compliance issues with our sponsors as well. The last bullet here is really, really important. If the amended protocol adds additional procedures and we haven't gone back to our sponsor and asked for additional funds, what we may find is our sponsor's compensation level is deficient, and we don't want that to occur as well. So please be proactive, engage us. If you question whether you should be engaging us because of an administrative or a financial change, engage us nonetheless. We will look it over quickly and we will advise you. Okay? Any questions or concerns there? No. Okay. The last topic for me today is DocuSign. The university is betaing the use of DocuSign. For those of you who don't know, it's a privately owned software. What it allows you to do is it allows you to upload contracts and identify who the different signatories are and electronically route, electronically sign, and at the conclusion, once all parties have signed, everyone gets a copy of it, all through a system. So it alleviates right now, I know a lot of people are scanning and uploading, emailing, then the department prints out, the department runs around and gets signatures, scans again, sends back. It alleviates all of that process, so it's good. But it's important for you to note that right now this is a beta, so we're just testing out the software. So pre-award is the ORA guinea pig. We started off, or we anticipate starting off in October, but I will tell you for the last 2 weeks, we have been betaing the process. So if you have been engaged by my team and they forewarned you, please understand we're just trying to work through the processes. Officially, we will begin in October. It's an initiative that'll save us all time, not just ORA, and it'll alleviate the need, as I said, for that printing, running around, signing and scanning. The initial launch will be focused on contracting. Okay, and that is contracting both with pharma and other entities through Stu's team, as well as our governmental team, Karen's team. We're going to start off with contracting, make certain that it's working smoothly, and then we anticipate expanding it. It's also important to note that ORA is betaing this, but business services anticipates doing the same. So don't just think of it solely for us, also see it broader for the university as a whole. If the two betas work, we may end up entering into an institution-wide license as well, so it could grow further. So I said to you a moment ago, it is going to include contracts. There are some exclusions to that, and I've listed them here. Some of our sponsors do require wet ink, original signatures. If that's the requirement of the sponsor, we don't have the ability to override them, so we will exclude those contracts. In addition to that, some of our contracts require a notary seal or the corporate seal. In those cases, same thing. We're going to exclude them from using DocuSign for that purpose alone. And then we also have some sponsors that have their own e-signature system. AdGene is a great example. We utilize them all the time, but so does the Children's Trust, and even Vanderbilt has its own e-sign signatures process. So if there is a system in place and that entity prefers to utilize their system, we will exclude them as well. But everything else we will try. As a matter of fact, one of our processes is, and you'll see in a second, making certain that the entity is agreeable to using DocuSign, and then we will do so. So here's what ORA's process is going to be. First, we're going to confirm that the parties to the agreement are agreeable to using DocuSign. If they agree, then we will proceed. ORA will compile the DocuSign package. That'll include the contract, all of the associated attachments, exhibits, addendums, and so forth. We will alert the PI, the department, the sponsor that the DocuSign package is about to be routed. The reason that we're going to do that is we want you all to recognize the email of that contract isn't going to come from ORA personnel. It's going to come from DocuSign. We have created a subject line that acts as a big indicator that this isn't spam, this isn't something you should delete, you need to take action, this is a UM contract, but we also want to give you that forewarning so that you are aware. So you'll get an email from DocuSign. You just log in or click the hyperlink and you're able to electronically sign. No one should take that DocuSign email, print out the contract, sign it, scan it, and upload it. That defeats the purpose. You want to utilize the e-signature functionality that is contained within the system. And then once all parties sign the agreement, then DocuSign automatically sends out an email that says that the contract is completed, and they also attach it. So everyone will get it at that time. There are some processes that are going to remain unchanged, and so I wanted everyone to be aware of them. You're still going to submit your documents to ORA consistent with submitting to ORA. That process has not changed at all. Pre-award is still going to assign that contract to a contract officer and to a budget analyst where appropriate, as we normally would. We're still going to conduct our review and our negotiation process, so that doesn't change at all. Similarly, post-awards process doesn't change at all either. So if it's an incoming agreement, post-award still needs to check to see if it's conflict of interest clear. They're still going to need to open the award and distribute the budget and so forth. Their process is going to remain unchanged. If it's an outbound mechanism, so it's an outbound subcontract or it is a Jackson work order, supply chains processes aren't going to change either. It's just the actual signature side that changes. That's important for you all to know. In addition to that, it's really important that the DocuSign document gets signed in a timely manner. So when you create a DocuSign envelope, when ORA creates a DocuSign envelope, they identify how long that document is alive. And it's alive for 30 days. That means all parties to that agreement need to sign within that 30-day window. If they don't sign within that 30-day window, the document expires and it's no longer accessible. I just got an email this morning from one of our sponsors that uses DocuSign where an envelope expired. So you don't want that to happen. We are initially setting it up at 30 days as the window, but we anticipate that we're going to narrow that further. We're just starting it off a little broad because we understand we're all going to be learning and transitioning into this model. The system, DocuSign system, will send reminders every 5 days. You haven't signed, you have an envelope that needs your review and your signature. So all parties to the agreement are going to get those reminders. That's because we're trying to quicken our routing process, not extend it further out. In addition, and I didn't put a bullet here, but I think it's going to be important for you all to note, we have the ability, and our contract officers are going to be asking you this before we route the envelope. We have the ability to add the departmental administrator as a reviewer. What that allows you to do is to know that the envelope has been sent out and to partner with your investigator to make certain that your investigator signs as quickly as possible. Okay, so we will be enabling that functionality as well, and that'll allow you to be proactive and partner with us. One of the things that we want to make certain everyone understands is we're not going to be routing a document until it was fully negotiated. So there shouldn't be questions or concerns once it's already in the DocuSign system. But if somebody reviews one of the contracts and they have a question or a concern, they should be contacting the contract officer, and the contract officer's name and contact information is going to be contained within that DocuSign email. So you contact the contract officer, pose your question, afford them the opportunity to resolve it. Please do not decline to sign. Well, and this is a message that you want to share with your investigator. Do not decline to sign, because what that will make us do is start the envelope process all over again. We don't want that to happen. And then one last important note, you're going to get a prompt from DocuSign that you can open an account, and it's going to cost money. You don't need to open an account. You can sign just by us sending you the link. So you don't need to log into their system. You don't need a username or a password. So your faculty can disregard that. You can as well when you're listed as a reviewer. Okay, any questions about DocuSign? Have any of you gotten a DocuSign this week, or last week, excuse me? Okay, we have been testing. I know that I've processed at least 10 last week alone. So you'll see it pick up this week, and then most definitely you'll see it pick up in October. Okay? Lionel's not available today, so Barbara's going to cover this next section for him. Barbara?
So for those of you who work and do any financials with the cores or service centers, raise your hand. Okay. This is just a new form. It's nothing exciting, really. That when you apply for your billing rates, your annual billing rates, and you update those rates, we put a front page to it, simply so that for two reasons. One, it has a sign off by your department chair or designee, because what you're doing in most of the cases with most of the service centers, they're being subsidized. So when you put through those rates, you're saying, here's what we're going to charge, here's what I think we're going to bring in, and here's how much is going to be the deficit. We want to make sure that the departments are aware and the school is aware how much those deficits are. Right now, the biggest one is the cancer center, but all in total for the School of Medicine, it's a little over $10 million a year. So basically, it's the ID tag, the working of the form. There's not too much else to tell. You'll see at the bottom, there's the signature date. That also, the second purpose is so that we have a cover that goes to the service center committee that meets, that also reviews the rates. Lionel and Lydia look at them and check out for the costing purposes, what's applicable, what's not, and so forth. And then the committee reviews to make sure that it is a needed service, it's not in conflict with another service or duplicating another service. So that's really it. It's just the front end of a commitment form that goes with the service center rates. Any questions? That was simple. Okay, next up is Lydia Zantout. She's going to talk about the Green Fire Clean Card program. We have been beta-ing it for about, what, a year and a half?
Since June of last year.
Yeah, okay. And we're now getting ready to go out in full force. I think you'll like this. And stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Lydia Zantut, Manager of Business Operations. Like Barbara said, we have been piloting this for a little over a year. And the Clean Card is a debit card that we use to reimburse clinical clinical trial participants. And the nice part is once you issue a card, it's reloadable for each time that participant comes back to the study. And the card is managed through a website. And we are trying to go full broader from the 6 studies I have currently enrolled. And we are working with the company to practice the single sign-on login right now. So you will access that just like you do with Workday or anything else with your UMID.
I want to make a comment about that, if I may. What was prohibiting us for the past year and a half has been the technology involved in security. And so everyone who participated in the beta for this had to have a standalone computer used only for the Twin Card program. The Twin Card program was designed to get rid of all the cash transactions and anything else you're trying to do to reimburse your subjects. And it's really, really great because it has great reporting with it too and the reloadable cards. So what's the major change and why we can open this up now is we're going to have single sign-on, which takes care of the technical issues about securing our data. And that's why we're changing.
There are costs with the program. A blank card costs $3.65 right now. And each time there is a transaction on the card, it costs $1. We will be asking you to build those costs into your study budget. And the study account will be charged for this cost and participant payments. The card has a lot of benefits. The first one Barbara said is no checks, no cash. The people that have been using it totally love it. And the patients like it. The minute the card is loaded, the balance is available. The card is free to use unless they decide to use it like at an ATM machine. The easiest way to use it is to scan it like a credit card at the register. Or they can use it like a debit card using a PIN. Or they can go to a bank that takes MasterCard and they can withdraw the cash amount and the card is blank again. There's a little catch. We have 6 months to use the balance loaded onto the card. But most people like to have a little money. They don't wait for the 6 months and they use it. If a participant loses the card is replaceable. We just issue another one and transfer the balance. And in the last 18 months, we only had 1 card that has been lost. So they really take care of their cards. Just like Workday, your access is based on your assigned role. ORA has full access. We are the administrator. We add the study, we can edit it and add every information related to the study. We will enter the payment schedule, the milestones, their names, amounts, and you get to tell me if a milestone requires approval before we pay. We add and edit users. For now, we are the approver. And we assign the roles of coordinator and report viewer. And we have access to all reporting, including the 1099, which is what we have to turn into accounts payable once a year for the participants that get $600 or more. At the site, there are 2 options right now. You get to decide who will be the site coordinator. And that person will register the patients, issue the cards, load them, avoid payments. Sometimes you load by mistake. You can also make appointments for them and set up reminders, which nobody has used so far, but it's a great feature. You can send them text alerts the next time they have to come back. And you can view all the reports but 1099s. And our office manages the cards. We keep the blank cards. You register the study with us, and then you order the cards. I need about 7 to 10 days to get them to you. And then whoever requests the cards is who I send it. I have had studies registered by the site coordinator, by the PI, by managers, by different types of people. So it's not set by one role. As long as you all agree that's what you want to do. And then if you're interested, you contact me or Lionel. There is a form to request the card available by email right now from me. We are working to see if we can possibly put that form on our website. And in about a month, we're going to have a more detailed information session. And you can go in ULearn and click Clean Card. Type Clean Card, it will bring up that. And we will also offer training on how to use the portal. And then we will also have the forms. And if some of you who don't know me yet, where you signed in, there's my business card you can take with you. So you can remember and pass that along.
You have a question?
Yes, so when it's, I guess, timeline rolls out, is it mandatory for these studies? How that
The question is the timeline and if it's going to be mandatory for new studies. Right now, it's not going to be mandatory, it's voluntary. The timeline, we are hoping to have this before the end of the year is very feasible. Exact date, we're not sure. We're thinking around beginning of November. That's pretty realistic as a timeline.
But eventually it's important to make it mandatory.
Okay.
Yeah, this part I don't know yet.
Okay. About 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, we had the cry from investigators saying, I don't want to handle the cash. It's too cumbersome for checks. We want a simple way to do patient reimbursement. Lots of universities are doing it this way. It is our hope that eventually it will be 95% used and the rest you go through your normal, what is now normal through AP, and you have your petty cash accounts. So we're trying to reduce petty cash accounts. This, I think once you get on this, you're really going to like it because it's going to make a real ease and the tracking and the reporting as well. So is it mandatory yet? No. Do we want it to be fully used? Yes, over a time frame. We're thinking about not even here, but athletics and a lot of different places to try to use a debit card program. And here's the teaser. When we send this out to you, Lydia said, we're going to have training. We're going to have it on ULearn. We want as many people to participate as possible. I think you're really going to like it. And for the time being, we have free cards.
Yes.
So instead of $365 a card, we have purchased a bulk number of cards. First come, first serve. You'll get your first round in the trial. We will give you the cards at no cost.
I have about 650 cards right now left from the ones we bought.
We have a couple more questions.
Yes. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Your study, the account that's funding the study.
So you want to build that in for the cost of the card. The card is $365, each load is $1, and then whatever the subject reimbursement is. So you want to make sure that that's built in.
What about if sponsors don't allow the 365 for the car?
Say that again, please.
What about the sponsor doesn't allow to be charged the $3.65?
Well, the sponsor will. We negotiate that.
We will. Yes.
Have you had accounts where somebody gets a card and they go to use it and say, oh, there's no money on it?
No, no, we haven't. and the patient can call and check out the balance, just like when you have a gift card, or they can call the center just to log on, it tells me, or I can go online and check how much is on the card. But nobody has had that issue. Actually, I'm going to make you laugh. The biggest issue we had is a participant who had a card with whatever amount was on there, and they went into the bank and go deposit that card in my account. And then it doesn't work like that. They would have to cash it first. So, but people are loving it. Yes.
Can we recycle the card for multiple participants?
Yes. No, the card is not recyclable. I'm sorry. The same participant in more than one study, yes. But once the card has been assigned to a participant, if they no longer participate, they can shred it or throw it away.
You can reload it for the
We can
participant.
reload it for that participant, yes.
What has been like the rate of people coming back to like the second study and then not having the card?
The question is, if the participant doesn't have the card when they come back to the study site, they do not need the card when they come back. It's all done online.
But I guess like, have you calculated how many people lose the card? You said one or two.
One.
person is only-
Yeah, one card has been lost so far.
You don't want them to lose the card. You impress upon them. Usually they don't because that's money.
Exactly.
And it's money to you if you got to pay for a second card.
One card?
It's
money
money to
to
you.
Absolutely, but I don't.
No.
They usually don't lose the card.
It's just like in their mind, it's a credit card. They swipe at Publix or wherever. They're not good. They haven't lost it, but they don't need the card when they come back to the study site to be loaded. Yeah. Any other questions? It's a great program.
And we do most of the management. You set it up, you follow, you set it up for the subjects, and then you track it, and then you get the reports on it as well. So we're really excited about this. You know, it's been a burden to get this thing going. It's been over 4 years. I'm glad to see it come to fruition, and I can't wait for people to use it. One more question.
Sorry. Do all the clinical trials get to participate in this, or would it be selected?
When we open it up,
Yeah, when we open it up, anybody who wants to participate can participate.
So basically, when we do the preclinical trial, we'll say, hey, we want to participate.
Yes, you contact me.
repeat the question.
Okay, what you're saying is, sorry.
There's a preclinical trial, so when you first submit all of your documents, is that when you say you want to participate, or once we get it?
I don't, for me, it doesn't matter when.
Jill has an answer there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, once you guys open it, if you want to allow people to randomly choose when they want to participate, we would want to know when they're engaging ORA so that when the budget is being built, it is built appropriately.
Meaning the preclinical trial version?
Yes. In the meantime, what I would suggest is you come to the detailed information session and the training we're going to have, whether you register or not, regardless of whether you register your study or not, so you can see what it looks like and how easy it is, just to get more knowledge. One more?
If we have multiple sites, can we use this service for other sites? Like,
By
because we have
multiple studies or multiple sites?
multiple sites, like we have a contract with another clinical settings where we can participate in payments with them.
Repeat the question.
I'm not really sure I'm getting the question.
So yeah, I think your question is, if we're subcontracting to another party and they are going to be enrolling subjects as well.
Would this service be available to them? Or can we still?
No,
What?
it's
No.
UM single sign-on.
Okay.
But if you have, and Barbara, correct me if I'm wrong, if it's multiple sites within the University of Miami, so like Ann Bates Leach, but Naples and so forth, then yes.
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 As long as
Right.
it's UM, entity that is enrolling the subjects, then ClinCard is applicable. If it is external to UN, then no, because of the single sign-on.
Okay, I think that about does it.
One more question here.
Okay, the question is, when are we going to have it? I think Lydia already talked. We look to open this about the 1st of November. We will send a notice out.
Yeah, but you can check in ULearn, type ClinCard, it will let you know what's scheduled.
Okay? Okay, any other questions on anything we've covered this morning? It's a lot. We thank you very much for coming. We thank you for participating with us. And we thank you for getting Workday better.